Welcome, welcome. We're going to actually start on time. I know, that's pretty amazing.
She didn't want to be your friend.
I appreciate everybody being here tonight. I would like to welcome our first speaker. This evening we'll be covering funeral and memorial planning for the church. That will be specific to the church. That'll be me speaking later. And I forgot I was wearing a mic. And then this is Cassandra Carter. She is with Stanley Funeral Home and Cremation Services. I've worked with Cassandra quite a few times with memorial services and funerals here at the church, and we get along pretty well.
I think so.
So I thought she'd be a great person to lead us off into what funeral homes are going to be able to do for your loved ones and yourself. Nobody wants to have to use a funeral home, but it happens because, as we have in the title of the class, death is inevitable. So I will turn it over to Cassandra, and she can take it away.
Okay. Well, hello. Thank you all for giving your time to listen to me. I won't be long-winded, I promise. So you've kind of made the first step by choosing to attend this class. So that means this series of classes. You know, that means you kind of get it, and that you want to get everything together. So that's good. But, you know, like Kathy said, choosing a funeral home and pre-arranging ahead of time is so, so important. You know, no one really wants to talk about it, but it's the talk of a lifetime. You know, it's brilliant. So I'm going to go over some of the benefits of that. And you'll see in the folder I gave you, there's just, you know, a guide, a checklist, a couple of different things. And I'm sure that checklist, all of your checklists combined that you already have are that. So the first benefit of pre-arranging is there's a financial benefit to it, in the sense that if you choose to pre-arrange and prepay for your burial or cremation services, it will lock in that current price that the funeral home charges. And we know that everything is just going up, groceries and funerals, cremations. So it locks in that rate. And, you know, you're around 25 more years, that is honored by the funeral service. Also, you're able to pay monthly payments. Whereas when a death occurs, I can't name a funeral home that will take payments. So that's something to think about. And I'll talk more about how pre-arranging benefits your families the most, but that's one of the benefits, is you've paid for it. And so whomever, you know, is surviving you doesn't have to have a financial burden. Prepay, thank you. Bless you. So, you know, you can prepay and make monthly payments as large or as small as you'd like, and it locks in today's price. So that is wonderful and brilliant and a great benefit. But the largest benefit that I have found is it takes the worry off of your family that they're doing what you wanted them to do. I sit in front of children, adult children, who have lost a parent, and they don't know what mom would have wanted. They don't know mom wanted to be cremated or buried or have a service or not. And they don't know. And that can cause rifts in the family dynamic as well. I see some fighting, I'm gonna tell you. And I hate that, because, you know, when someone has had a loss, everything is so heightened, and to have to ask yourself these really hard questions about the person you just lost and not being sure of the answer, doing this for your loved ones is the greatest benefit of all. The financial thing is just a little extra cherry on top. So when you prearrange a funeral or a cremation, we just say funeral, but cremations we love. You can sit down with the pre-planning person and give them every bit of information. They can take all your death certificate information down. You would be shocked how many people don't know the million-dollar questions. Social Security number, birthplace, mother's maiden name. I mean, so the funeral home can take all that down. If you choose cremation, you may sign your own cremation authorization ahead of time. Huge important thing, especially when you're having some issues with the survivors perhaps not agreeing on something. It's right here. But what you can do as well, and as Kathy will talk about, is you can record the details about the services you wish to have with the funeral home. Songs, verses, which flowers you want, which minister you want, which minister you don't want. Not here, of course, but I've had some sweet little angel older ladies who have brought me their dresses they want to wear. And I just have a little spot for them, and you can pick your urn out. You can make a note that you want to be placed in this columbarium. I mean, you can write your own obituary. People do that a lot. That's a really hard thing for your family to have to do. They don't remember things, especially at that time. So it just gives whomever is surviving you a guide, an outline, but mostly the peace of mind that they're doing what you wanted and that they don't have to pay for it, which we love. But also it's a good benefit if perhaps, there's no one immediately surviving you. And you have all your wishes on file and everything is pre-signed, and so it doesn't cause an issue at that time. And the last thing I'll say, in the little folder I gave, you'll see there's a card in there, like a little kind of plastic card. And it says, in the event of my death, contact Stanley's Funeral Home, my wishes are on file. And those are so wonderful to have. Everyone I know and love has one in their wallet, whether their wishes are on file or not. But that's one thing that, you should be given to place in your wallet, place on your fridge, because God forbid something happens to you out of town by yourself, that's the first place they look. So that's just a level of protection, and, so I like that about it. Does anyone have any questions? Yes.
These are some things that I've been asked. A lot of people don't realize that an obituary must be submitted by the funeral home to the paper. The paper will not accept it from a family member or you or anybody. It has to be from the cremation organization or the funeral home. And so that's something to keep in mind. And then I have a question about prepaying.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a balance, let's say you're prepaying and you've made payments but the balance is not totally paid yet and you pass away, how does that get?
So the balance, would be owed at the time of death. Okay. There would be no price inflation at all. So that's a really good question. Yes.
I know when we had this class several years ago, a question came up: if your loved one dies while they're traveling out of state, and then what arrangements and how that has to happen to get them back here into the funeral.
Good question. That's why we like that card. But if something happens, you have everything planned in Tulsa with a funeral home in Tulsa, and you pass away out of state, it can easily be arranged to bring you back here, or if you move. A lot of people move. And so when you prearrange, your funds are placed in a third-party vehicle. That is the law. The Oklahoma Insurance Department regulates it, and they audit it. And so that money, it's no one's money but yours until the time comes and the funeral home, retrieves it. So the money, let's say you did a prepayment for a cremation, paid it in full, and you moved to Nashville. You would just find a funeral home you liked in Nashville and ask if they would honor that. Most of them absolutely will. And then we just sign it over and they have the access to your funds and all your wishes on file. Does that answer your question? Sort of?
Well, I think my question was, what if, granddad was just away for 2 weeks?
Right, and
Needed to,
okay, I got it now. So, and actually that happens a lot. I have someone going to Fayetteville right now for a gentleman who was just, from here, but over there we picked up a gentleman that passed in Amarillo on his way back from Colorado. So when you pass away, whether the hospital, whomever, either they'll call Stanley's directly, which I wish they would, so then I can find a colleague in that area to pick the person up and place them under their care, because I can't just take someone out of a state without following that particular state's requirements. Oklahoma has pretty strict ones for a burial transit permit. Over in Arkansas, they're like, come on. So I don't know, but honestly. But if you, hopefully Stanley's will be contacted directly. If not, it would be communicated to a nurse or whomever, who's attending the death at that time, that you have wishes on file in Tulsa, and they'll find us. Oh, okay, Green. Because you don't have a name tag.
So, if those arrangements you just spoke of,
Mm-hmm.
is that true if the death occurs internationally?
So, yes. And that, that's another, it just depends where and all the rules and things like that. I will say there would be travel expenses for the decedent, even state, we have to charge you some mileage if we have to drive, but, and any fees that state charges. But yes, I have absolutely coordinated international shipping coming and going.
So you charge mileage, like if you died in Nashville, you charge mileage to get you back to Tulsa.
Mm-hmm.
Do you do green burials?
So green burials are wonderful, but Tulsa's just not quite there yet. The issue with that is there's not a cemetery that is going to accommodate a green burial at this time.
Can you explain what a green burial is?
Sure. A green burial is the idea that, you are returned to the earth. There's no, casket, there's no outer burial container, you're placed in a shroud and placed in the ground. And it's really cool, but there's none of the cemeteries here will do it. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so
I'll come back.
if I were to die in Fayetteville
Mm-hmm.
and my request is cremation,
Uh-huh.
so would I be cremated in Fayetteville, or would my body be brought back here to be cremated?
So that is a great question. And that kind of you can do either. Like this gentleman coming from Fayetteville, his family really wanted to make sure that we perform the cremation, which is why we went to pick him up. What we look at is what is the most cost-effective thing for you all. So if it's really, really, really far away, and you have to get on a plane and that can just get so expensive. But we keep the family, informed and let them, this is what we think would be the best thing. Uh-huh.
Okay, so I've got a couple follow-up questions related to that.
Okay.
So, are there national funeral home services? Because Stanley's, is it just local
Uh-huh.
Tulsa? So are there national funeral home services?
Not nationally. What I like to do is if I have, a few minutes, I'll call around or first I'll see if I have a network of colleagues, and I'll shoot a text. Who do you trust in Fayetteville? And then that's where I get the best information. And then I get on the Google and I call and I see if they answer their own phone at 3 a.m. like me, or if they have an answering service, click, and just try to find somewhere that will take care of the initial care and custody of that person the way that we would. And so it's really, there's not like a national, phone number to call.
Hyatt, so
Right. Right. Yeah, no, but that's a really good question. Yes.
Could you explain how the death certificate is handled, generated, and given to the family?
So there is an electronic system in Oklahoma called Rover, and it's like registering, it's an acronym, I don't remember. But what we do is we take, we have the information already in your file, so we can get a head start on it, and we input that information, and then we, depending on if you choose burial, we would send that to the, physician in charge of your care at the time of death. If you were under hospice, it would be their medical director. Cremation, this is the scary word, don't let it scare you. The medical examiner issues permits for every person in the state of Oklahoma to be cremated. They will not, unless there's circumstances, they'll never see you. You'll come straight, to the funeral home you choose, and it'll just be, phone calls from their people to whoever's in charge of your care. And so the medical examiner issues a death certificate if you are cremated. That process has really been fine-tuned. I'm telling you, I've been doing this for 20 years. It's the fastest it's ever been.
Yay!
Honestly, it used to be months, and we had no recourse. It was awful. So everyone has kind of got it figured out. And so usually the average turnaround time for a death certificate to be inputted, signed by the certifier, and then registered with the state of Oklahoma as a permanent record, and then picked up by the funeral home, which they used to ship them, and now we get to pick them up. I would say 10 business days, which I think is pretty good. Sometimes faster. Yes?
So if I die in Fayetteville and I want to be cremated and my children know that, and if I do get cremated in Fayetteville because it's cheaper, does a funeral home have to transport my remains?
No.
Okay.
No, cremated remains are not considered to be human remains. So all of the things that are required to have a licensed funeral director be doing doesn't have to happen with cremated remains, which is why these services, for people who choose cremation are great here, because they all know what they're doing. It's wonderful, and you don't have to pay the funeral home to be here unless you want to. Yes.
Pay us at the church.
That's what I'm saying.
So,
One sec, babe.
say the loved one chooses cremation, and some people go ahead and bury them in the cemetery next to a loved one. Or some people put the individual on the mantle in the living room. But then some people want to sprinkle. But what are kind of the rules and regulations of private property?
Good
versus
question.
The lake versus.
So my advice is, legally, it is not permitted anywhere public. It's frowned upon. My advice is if you're choosing to do it somewhere public, don't be all fancy about it. That's what I say. The places where I feel like you would really get caught is if you want to scatter at a cemetery on top of someone's grave. You know why? Because they want to charge you. They want to charge you for a right of second interment of that space. So they're not really fond of people coming and scattering cremated remains on existing graves. Now, if it's a little city cemetery, they're not going to do anything. But in Tulsa, they watch you. It's sad, but yeah, I mean, and I would be careful at national monuments and parks and things like that. But if you just want to do it at the lake, or just a favorite hiking trail or Colorado, and you can also fly with cremated remains super easily. And so you don't have to have a funeral director do any of that. Yes.
If you were to die in another state and you, like everyone's asking, wouldn't it be something you put in your directive so then they automatically know that to pick you up and bring you back to the state you want to be buried in? Is that something you put in your directive?
Oh, if you're not being cremated?
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would just be part of the wishes. Like, this is my final resting place. I have a plot at, Memorial Park next to and that's where I want to be. And then that kind of, and if the death isn't an unexpected death, these are questions when you are perhaps moving into a care center or being placed under hospice. They want to know what your funeral home of preference is. So 99% of the time, it, is already there.
Yeah, when my mom and dad passed, they already had, the place at the cemetery already booked, which we thought was cool but weird, but.
No, not weird.
It's not weird.
Well, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
We
they're
never
plots.
heard of that.
Sure.
And so it was pretty simple because they had everything already for us. But
Say that again out loud, louder.
it was simple because they had everything already planned out for us. And
Yeah.
so
I'm so glad it was a good experience, honestly.
So, would that be something you put in your directive too?
Absolutely. These are I have property here. I would scan a copy of the deed. I'd have the plot description. I would look at their cemetery stuff and find out that if you have already purchased a marker or a monument. If you are choosing ground burial, I would recommend buying your spaces now. So many people are cremating. Cemeteries they don't know what to do. No one's burying hardly at all. And so they're just going to start jacking all of those prices up very high. So buying your plots you can do at any time, and you can even go ahead and choose your marker or monument and get that already done and set. And when the time comes, they would just either etch in the date of death or add a little bronze plaque. So because that's a whole, cemeteries are a whole other side that can also be really, really expensive, and their prices are just going to go up. Yes?
Do you provide the cremation service or do you contract that out?
Great question. Everything at Stanley's is done under my direct supervision. We own and operate our own crematory. We have our protective refrigeration facility is at Stanley's. I answer the phones 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I have my own team who are actually all female, who go, and when people pass away, they go place them under their care and bring them right back to Stanley's. That is a great question because it's not a great phrase to be, to say you get what you pay for, but places that are really super inexpensive, you might want to be, I'm not pointing or anything, but just kind of be wary, and that's a good question. If you're shopping around, be sure to ask, do you have your own crematory? Ours is located at we have another branch on 3rd and Lewis, and so that is actually where the crematory is. Christine is our cremationist. Gracie or Bryson will come place you under your care. And that's what I just find that to be invaluable because you guys, you see things, you hear things, and I can just assure you that it's all done under our umbrella. Mm-hmm.
Do you have cardboard boxes for cremation? You don't have to buy a casket.
No, you don't. So you are not required to purchase a casket for cremation. We place any people who we are choosing to cremate in a large, rigid cardboard box that's not required by the state. We do it because it is a more dignified way for people to be in protective refrigeration. And then we perform the cremation in that container. But you don't pay for it. That's just something that we do.
What's the price difference between cremation and embalming and burial?
So much. Cremation, cremation services usually, $33,000-ish. You can't do anything burial-wise for, if you add the cemetery stuff in, minimum 10 grand. It's just unreal. And I wiggle when I can, but it's just not cheap to bury. You have to buy all this merchandise, and you don't have to be embalmed if you're going to be cremated. That is not a requirement as well.
I'm going to ask us to thank Cassandra in the interest of time. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. And my card is in there, and this is not sponsored by, this is just, I want to consult. This is valuable information that no one's supposed to be good at but me, and I want to share. And so my phone number is on my card, my cell phone, love a text message. Obviously, I can be found pretty easily. I was going to say, if there's a black car parked out front at Stanley's, I'm there. So
don't call her at 2 a.m. if it's just, hey, I was wondering about this.
Oh, you'd be surprised.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you
You're
so much.
so welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right. My name's Kathy Wilson. I am the member care person for the church. I do I coordinate all the funeral and memorial services at the church. So that's why I've worked with Cassandra a few times. And I will say one thing that's a lot of people don't realize that she mentioned is that we have such a great team here of greeters, and we have deacon hosts, and so unless there's a casket involved, the funeral home doesn't actually have to come to the service and assist, which can save you some bucks. So, and that's thank you to our volunteers. That's not me. That's our volunteers that are willing to help with all of that. Thank you, Cassandra. I'll see you. Okay. Bye. So
I didn't know hers, is it?
No, that's mine. Yeah, thank you for asking. Okay, so we're going to go through these really quickly, this handout that you have, maybe, hopefully quickly. The first page is something that you would want to fill out for your loved ones. This is not something your loved ones would fill out and give to the church. They're not going to know some of this stuff. And I did notice in her folder, there's in this, the family guide, I think this is so cool. The life review right there at the top left corner. You would be surprised what your family doesn't know about you. It is kind of impressive. And then they're supposed to write an obituary. That's a tough duty. That's not easy at all. This gives them some information that would be helpful. My suggestion is to write your own and to just update it once every year, once every 2 years. If you need to add information, if you have new grandchildren or anything like that. My dad wrote his own obituary, and it was so helpful to us because we didn't have to agonize over, where did he go to college? So that's just a suggestion for you. So this is for you to fill out to let your loved ones know what your wishes are regarding your service, assuming you would like to have it here at the church. This is specifically for our church.
Do you assist with graveside services?
The pastor can do that, yes. Now, if you have a graveside service, the funeral home will be working with you on planning, or the cemetery, yeah. So if you have a funeral home preference, that's on there. Then a lot of people they just don't know, as she was saying, did my loved one want to be cremated? Did they want to be buried? Did they want to be cremated and then buried? Do they want to be in our columbarium? So this lets you know that. And we'll talk about the columbarium, which would be a place where your cremains, that's what we call remains of cremated people, is called cremains. They're in an urn that the church provides as part of the expense of the niche. And then that would be inurned in the columbarium, and then the name and dates are engraved in the stone panel. So that is worked through our business office. Tony Mosley is in charge of cremation sales and information. So the other thing that a lot of people don't realize is how many types of services that you could have. A memorial service would be where there's no urn or no casket in the service itself. And some people who do memorial services, they want to be inurned that day in our columbarium or somewhere else, or buried that day. Or sometimes they get, those things happen 3 months later. So when you're cremated, then there's a lot of time flexibility that doesn't happen if you're being buried. If you're being buried and embalmed, then we usually need to have all that happen within about a week of death. So that's why it's so nice to have this, because if you have a week to plan all of that, that's real, and you're grieving the loved one, that's a lot for the family to handle. Another kind of service is a funeral service that does have the casket in the service. We do that. As she said, it's not that common anymore, but we absolutely will do that. The funeral home must be involved if there's a casket in the service. It's required. They have to transport it and they have to take it out, and they are the ones who will take care of the burial afterwards. So that's one thing and that is going to be a significant price increase. It may matter, it may not.
Do we have a policy about open casket versus?
Yes, we do. We do not do open caskets here. Thank you for asking that. Some people just want a memorial service, and that's it. The people who have passed away, they just want their remains to stay on the mantle, like Duff said, or they have other plans for them, or sometimes they're going to be buried or inurned in a national cemetery. They're veterans, and there's already been plans made, and so we're just doing only the service. That's definitely an option. Some people don't want a service at all in the church or anywhere. They just want a small, intimate graveside or in the columbarium of their choice with the family only, and our pastor will be happy to officiate that too. So that's an option. And
Where's the columbarium?
we're going to go over that.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. All right, yeah, because it's one of those things like, well, what? Because people don't know about it. So the next part is elements of the service. And I'm just going to do my little spiel here because I've run against this a few times. When you pre-plan any part of your service, I want you to leave room for your loved ones to say, oh, I really wanted the Requiem choir, or it would mean so much to me if we did this song. And if you have planned out every single element of your service, they're going to feel terrible about making any changes at all to what you have laid out. Remember that your service is not for you. You're gone. You're in heaven. This is to comfort your loved ones, your survivors. And I'll tell you a personal story. When my father was in hospice, we knew he was going to pass, and we asked him, do you want the Requiem choir? My mother has sung in the choir for 1 billion years, and it's very important to her. And he said, oh, no, that's too much. My dad was a very humble man. So when Jim Miller came to the house after Dad had died to talk about his service, he asked, would you like the Requiem choir to sing, which is a small group of people that volunteer from our choir to sing in the service, sing an anthem or two. And she said, well, Bill didn't want that. And he goes, Sally, what do you want? She goes, oh, I would love the Requiem choir to sing. And I cannot tell you how glad I am that he said, Sally, you just need to do that because it's going to comfort you so much. And sitting there in that front row where the family sits and looking up and seeing those faces of people who loved our family for so long, loved my mother, loved me, there's just nothing more precious than that memory for me. So remember that you're doing this for your loved ones, not for you. Okay? I have people who have written out every iota of their service. And I can tell you right now, it's not going to happen because they're asking people who are no longer living to be a part of their service. So just be aware, things change, right? So that's something to keep in mind. For instance, your first choice of pastor. He may not be here anymore. You wouldn't believe how many people put Jim Miller there. Well, he's no longer employed by the church. So you just have to realize that it may not be totally 100% exactly what you're asking for. And that's why it says second choice, third choice. And sometimes it's like, who's available? Because that's the time that you really need to do the service, and this is who's available. I will tell you, and I can speak from vast experience on this, because I've been doing this a while now, there is not a single pastor on our staff that I wouldn't 100% recommend to do a memorial service. They are all absolutely wonderful. They will comfort and inspire. The gospel will be proclaimed. I've never been in a memorial service here where there wasn't a gospel proclaimed, but they don't beat people over the head with it. It's done in a very loving and respectful way. So it doesn't matter which pastor you use, your loved ones will be well cared for. You can let them know if you have any favorite scriptures, any favorite hymns. That's actually really helpful for them to know because they may not have a clue. So that kind of thing is great, that you can lock that in stone. You may want a soloist to sing a particular hymn or solo in your service. Please keep in mind, all music in our church must be sacred. You cannot have Spirit in the Sky at your service. That's been asked. Or wind beneath my wings, I did it my way. Those are not going to fly. Yeah.
Have you ever had like someone that's a member of the church, but their family wants them at a service at a different church, and then our pastors go there, or no?
That's not since I've been here. I know that we've had one person who had a service at Inverness, which is we're so connected with Inverness. We have a ton of members there, and they did go to the Inverness. And of course, Rick Davis is their chaplain, and he's a former pastor of our church. So they will go, to Inverness and perform a service. Because sometimes, if you pass away at Inverness, a lot of times, everybody who would come to your service, they're just not mobile enough to come here and do a service at our church. So that works out well. Our pastors really do not like to do services at funeral homes. I will just tell you that right now. I would say I wouldn't even ask that, because what happens is, I remember James telling me this horrible story. God bless funeral homes, right? I mean, the chapels are sometimes really not very Christian because they have to be so ecumenical. Any religious persuasion needs to be able to be comfortable in their space. But the other thing is, he said the person had requested Amazing Grace. Well, they play everything just through a speaker, right? It's all going to be recorded. It's very unusual to have live music because they don't have sometimes instruments available. So here comes on the loudspeaker the most horrible arrangement of Amazing Grace that you've ever heard in your life. It was like a rockabilly thing, and the family was like, so you just, I will say, that's not really gonna. You can try. You could ask, and they would say yes or no. My guess is most of the pastors that I know would probably say, "Let's do it at the church, where we have like quality live music." Yeah.
Services ever been held at Camp Lockridge Chapel?
Not that I'm aware of. Not that I've helped with. Yeah, I'm not sure. I would think that would be possible, but I've never assisted with one. They probably have their own coordinator there, so I'm not.
They have a wedding coordinator.
Yeah, and they may do them there. I just don't know.
I've never heard of one
yeah,
here.
I'm not thinking they do that, but it's worth a shot to ask. So just be aware if you do request the Requiem choir, because sometimes they're very important. If you've sung in the choir for a long time, or your spouse did, or something like that, you may really want the Requiem choir. That's done on a volunteer basis. Ron will put a sign-up sheet in the choir room, and if he gets 7 people to sign up, then that's going to limit what they can do, what they can sing. Some pieces just don't work unless you have 15 to 20 people in the choir. So just be aware, you can trust Ron to make a really good choice, but if what you've chosen will not work with the number of volunteer singers they have, then he'll have to make another choice. So again, flexibility, flexible. Okay. The next page is what I send out to every family that has called me and said, we've had a death, we're going to be looking at a memorial service or a funeral at the church. This is just, right now, it is all of our policies about everything I've ever been asked about anything. And it's, how do I handle flowers? What are the dimensions? What do you tell the florist? Honorariums, which are not, we do not charge a fee for our pastors and our musicians, but it is a traditional thank you to offer them an honorarium. Some people can't do that. They can still have their service here. That's all right. If you're a member and you're having your service, or your spouse passes away, or your child, we do not charge for spaces. We don't charge for the reception. If all you're having is the standard cookie reception with coffee and citrus water and punch, that is a gift provided by the Board of Deacons. Thank you, Board of Deacons. And they will host those receptions for you. The volunteer deacons will come and help serve and clean up. If you have a casket, there's some things that we cannot put on top of the casket. We have a beautiful silk Christian pall, white silk with a gold cross. It takes a little bit of doing to get it ready to go because it has to be steam ironed and all that. So I would need some notice. You can't put flowers on top of the silk pall. So, but some people do just put flowers on top of the casket. So that's, we are currently not allowing flags to be on the top of the casket. If you have a military person, the flag can be on the casket until you get to the narthex. They can do the flag folding ceremony in the narthex with the survivor's spouse or the family, and then it can be brought into the sanctuary. And that's because the whole service is considered a worship service with its focus 100% on Jesus. So I will tell you, some of these policies are being looked at by the Sessions Member Care Committee, and they'll be kind of reevaluating. And then, of course, we have a new senior coming in, new senior pastor coming in, so they may have some input into some of these too. So this is the current policies for right now.
Is there a policy about Masonic add-ons or?
Thank you.
FOP?
Yes, we don't do those. That would be something they'd need to do elsewhere before or after the service. Yeah. Let's see. Bulletins. A lot of times the funeral home would just think that if you're using a funeral home, they'll say, well, we do the bulletins. No, they don't. No, they don't. Not here. We do the bulletins. That's a requirement. The church must do the bulletins. They sometimes will make little inserts with a photo and the obit and all that, which we place inside of our bulletin, but you have to have a church bulletin for our services. And music, as I said, all sacred music, including solos and hymns. Let's see if there's anything else in here that I've had issues with. Some people are, and these are members. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here, but I find this shocking where people who are members ask me if we can show a video in the sanctuary during the service. Sure, on my cell phone. I mean, that's about it. We can't do that. We don't have a screen in the sanctuary. And even if they wanted to move it into the Stevenson Hall or Burnson or something, we will not show a video during a worship service because the worship service is focusing not just on the deceased person, but on Jesus as well. So we're happy to show those during the reception. We have all kinds of things we can do during the reception, including playing Spirit in the Sky, if you really want that. But not in the service. We can be flexible too. So I think that live streaming currently not offered. A lot of people ask about that. A lot of people don't realize it takes a crew of 5 or 6 people to produce our Sunday services. Gene knows that because he's helped with sound so much, but we can't do that for services during the day. A lot of our volunteers actually have jobs that they work at and can't do that. So we can do, like, if somebody wants to take their phone and stream or record a video, I have a tripod at my office that I'm more than happy to loan to the family if that would be helpful to them. Standard order of service? Yeah, Doug.
I was back on the reception.
Yeah.
We provide the coffee and cookie reception, but if they wanted to upgrade, they
Yes.
could work with Chef Joseph.
Absolutely. There would be a fee, a per person fee for whatever you choose. I think the last one I did was a fruit cheese cracker tray and I think finger sandwiches, and it was about $5 a person. He's very reasonable, but that can mount up if you're expecting 150 people. So, and I will tell you, everybody orders too much food. I'm just saying, don't do that. Just tell your family, don't order too much food. Because you would not believe how many things we have packed up. I mean, tons of food that the family takes home with them and then has to figure out what to do with it. So really, the cookie reception is all you need. People aren't coming there to eat dinner or lunch. They're coming there to honor the memory and be with family. All right, order of service, that's just a standard order of service that the pastor is the one who determines the interior of the service. The actual content of the service is determined between the family and the pastor in a meeting that you'll have with the pastor, or your family will have, about anywhere from a week to 3 days prior to the service. This is what I work from when I'm talking to...
One of those handouts, I guess I missed it.
Sure. I have many of these handouts. The little form that you see, I actually kind of debated whether or not that should go out to y'all because it's my secret weapon to making sure I stay organized. This is all the stuff I need to know in order to coordinate a service. And then that is given to the staff. I send that out to the entire staff so everybody is on the same page. So that gives you an idea of what I'll need to know and what your family members will need to know when they're planning a service here. The next page is about our columbarium. The columbarium is located, you know where the Kerr Chapel doors are off of Boston? If you go straight up the stairs, you're right there at the chapel. It's the furthest north set of doors off of Boston Avenue. The columbarium is just between that door and the next door, right off of Boston Avenue. It has 2 iron gates. You can see a picture of the interior of the columbarium on the top, and the gate that faces Boston Avenue is the one with the Celtic cross on it. That is kept locked at all times because it's also a great place for people who are homeless to hang out. And so we keep it locked. All family members who have someone interned in the columbarium receive a key to the columbarium gate, which they can make as many duplicate copies of the key as they like. But we don't keep it unlocked except for Sunday afternoons after church. It is unlocked for family members to visit their loved ones after the services. So as I said, the columbarium is managed by Tony Mosley, who's our businessman, our facilities chair. And I believe right now the niche and the urn, they're really pretty gold, very plain, elegant gold boxes that are the urns that we use for the columbarium are all included in that price, as well as the engraving. And I think right now that's $1,500. So my dad's in there, and my mom will be, and you can see who your next door neighbor will be. Yeah, yeah.
The photos, are those blank ones, like ones that are available?
Generally, yes. Yeah, and she has a map. There's a big map of what's available and what's not that you would look at. They are starting to fill up a little bit, so if you would like to be in the columbarium, I would recommend doing that sooner as opposed to later, so that you get in there when you want to and where you want to be. Laura, did you have a question?
You already answered.
Okay, good.
So there's spaces.
Yeah, oh yeah, there's still spaces available. I have to say, my dad was the chair of the columbarium committee, and it was a very difficult set of decisions that had to be made to make this happen, because there were so many emotions involved. Some people in the committee had just lost a family member, and so that was quite a difficult committee for him to be in charge of. But I think they did a beautiful job. You can see that the actual benches form a Celtic cross inside, and then that globe it has water coming over it, so you hear the sound of water when you're in there. It's very peaceful unless there's a truck going by or a motorcycle going by on Boston. And our engraver does a really good job. So,
What's the gold thing in the corner down here, do you know?
gold thing in the corner.
Oh, okay.
Show me what you're talking about.
This gold,
Oh no, that's a water fountain.
oh, okay.
Yeah, which does not function, by the way. That is not functional. You cannot put flowers or anything. There are some rules for the columbarium because there's so many people in there. If everybody brought flowers and tried to stick them, it would just not work. So that's something to keep in mind. If your family is a family that likes to decorate graves or something like that, then you may want to reconsider doing a columbarium. At least in our church, there may be others that are have more space available, but just something to keep in mind. Unless you're Gary Matthews and you can make a PVC pipe. He would make this PVC pipe thing that he would hang, and he was always so respectful and make sure if there was any interments happening, he would get it out of there. But for his wife, yes. Gosh, he was just the most dear person. He moved to Arkansas, so I'm still sad about that. Are there any other questions that I can help with? Jean?
Does the church still provide an audio recording for the family of the service?
You'll need to talk to your son about that.
Well, even if he made one, does it get duplicated and given to the family?
No, we used to have a volunteer, Barbara Mace, who would do that. She would make the copies and put them onto CDs, and she did a beautiful job. But she is living in Nevada now, and we don't have a volunteer doing that. So I would not count on an audio recording at this point. I would, if you really need to have it recorded, I would have a family member, with the phone.
Michael could do it, but apparently he doesn't unless it's asked for.
Well, and the problem is getting the recording afterwards. We've had a lot of problems sharing them as links or as, it's just, people want them just like emailed to them, and we haven't had to, it hasn't worked very well, so,
Sometimes I see emails, well, more so when I was on staff, about whenever someone dies that their funds or something are forgiven, or the family
Oh.
can leave a certain amount to the church. Can you tell us more
Sure,
about?
yeah. If you've made a pledge and you pass away halfway through the year that you've made the pledge for, we don't come after your family members for the remainder of your pledge. Then we would just forgive the pledge. If you have a surviving spouse that's a member of the church, that pledge would just be transferred to them. Does that answer your question? Memorial gifts, some people do, they'll send a gift to the church and they'll say, in memory of so-and-so, and that is recorded by the church, and they can designate it to Helping Hand or Operating, and then we send an acknowledgement of that to the family member that they've designated, so they can send a thank you note to the person who made the gift, unless it was made anonymously. We haven't been listing, some people have asked me about this, in lieu of flowers, please make a donation to, we haven't been doing that on the funeral bulletins anymore, just because sometimes sometimes the list went on and on and on and on. So I would definitely put that in your obituary if that's something that you have in mind. And of course, if you're interested in estate planning where you keep the church in mind, there's a foundation here that you can work through. It's called, with the Legacy Society, where you can arrange for a gift to be made to the church from your estate. So, and that's always a blessing. So, any other questions?
Thank you, Kathy.
Yeah, you're welcome. I hope and pray I do not have to work with any of you or any of your family members anytime soon. Shall we close with prayer? Yes. Lord Jesus, we thank you so much for this wonderful church that takes such good care of people who are grieving. We thank you for all the volunteers who open the doors, the volunteers who serve punch, the volunteers who smile and welcome the people who are hurting. We ask that you continue to bless our church. We ask that you comfort those who are grieving. We ask that you place your healing hand on those where there's pain or suffering. In Jesus' name, we ask all these things. In Jesus. All right. Thank you. And I do have some handouts out here from last week's presentation if you didn't get to pick those up.
Kathy,
Yes, sir.
a